Let's meet tonight's part of the panel and break it all down. We've got Republican strategist Noelle Nikpour. She's back, along with liberal talk show host and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, and part of the Problem podcast host and comedian Dave Smith. Welcome, everyone.
Hi. Hello.
So some of these things are falling apart, and that's not an incidental whoopsie. That's not a minor aspect of the story that gets sort of, snipped out in the editing process. That is central to this claim that there is another accuser who is basically laying a serial pattern of misconduct by a then young collegiate Brett Kavanaugh.
Look, back in the day, the New York Times was a respected journalistic newspaper, and it's not right now. And this hurts their business. I find it hard to believe that they would do all this just because they were out for Trump. This is beyond sloppy. When, I write every week for FoxNews.com, and this is how it goes. It's not the New York Times, but it's FoxNews.com, okay? And, we go back and forth. They have some edits. They have some final edits. And they always ask me, since I wrote it and my name is on it, are you okay with these edits? So I find what they're saying on The View, like you said, can you do better than that, just throwing the editor under the bus? This is a failure from the authors and reporters and editors all the way to the top at the New York Times. With regard to impeachment, please don't say Democrats, because the majority of Democrats are poo-pooing this.
Okay, but who are the Democrats who want to lead the party right now? Who are the Democrats that are getting the most attention right now? It is the front runners for the Democrat nomination, and the peloton has not changed. That's Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris. They're all out there talking about impeaching Brett Kavanaugh.
I don't hear Joe Biden doing it, and Kamala Harris is not a top nominee for the Democrats right now. She's been slipping today. She's how many points behind now where she was from the last
place.
Debate? Right, exactly. And she keeps dropping.
But in a field of 20,
Andrew Yang is doing better than she is in California. The latest poll came out today. First of all, if a victim says, "I don't recall this happening," you don't have an accusation.
No.
Right. Okay? You can't have a witness to a crime of the victim of the crime since there was no crime or recollection of the crime.
The witness doesn't even say, and unfortunately, there's so many layers here. Number one, Brett Kavanaugh, during these alleged incidents, was 18 years old. And I don't think there's a bigger ding-dong phase in anyone's life than when the prefrontal cortex detaches from the rest of the brain.
It's an interesting choice of phrase for this particular story. But there is, look, I mean, that's a whole different thing. But there is an interesting question. If you want to be adults and not the way people talk in front of a camera, but the way real people talk, like in private, yes, it's not excusable to rub your genitalia on somebody in college. But do we go around 30 years later and bringing this up and trying to take someone's job away? I don't know. Maybe that's a question that we don't have enough honest adults in this country to have right now. But the idea that you forgot this detail, this is the weakest. Look, that detail isn't something that needed to be in the story. That detail is disqualifying for running this story. If the victim, the supposed victim, is not claiming to be a victim, is not claiming that this happened, then this isn't even a "we have to believe all women" story. There's no one there to believe.
And the Deborah Ramirez part of the story is secondary. Because we've heard about that. That has been investigated. That has been part of the public discourse. That was part of the Senate confirmation process. That's not new.
And for this,
that's basically background, but that becomes the headline in the story if the rest of it falls apart. There's really essentially no reason for publishing the rest of it.
There was nothing there. And for this squad member to say, well, I believe Dr. Ford, I just don't really think this is how serious adults talk.
Okay, but
I believe this. Well, what evidence do you have? What reason is there?
And Christine Blasey Ford went before Congress and said, my friend Leland Kaiser was with me at this party. Leland Kaiser now says, I don't believe a word of this story. And her lawyer last summer finessed it in a different way, like she has no recollection but no reason to doubt Christine Blasey Ford. And now she's saying outright, I think that she's full of hot malarkey.
Well, it's in the news, so they have successfully done what they wanted to do.
The authors have,
We are now talking about this once again. It was put to bed. We are now talking about Brett Kavanaugh. But I think, somebody that's in politics, I think what they're trying to do as an overall narrative is I think that they're trying to frame another villain. I think they've already got Trump, and now they're going to go back and pull out a ghost from the past, Brett Kavanaugh, and they're also focusing on Mitch McConnell. So they've got their three villains that they set up, and I think that they're going to, have their narrative around Republicans are bad.
You know what's really curious to me? I'm wondering how someone like Al Franken feels about this. I'm wondering how Al Franken, because he probably philosophically totally disagrees with Brett Kavanaugh, but he has to look at this guy and say, look how easy it is to destroy someone's career. This is all you need, and then you need a few allegations, and you need the mob. The only difference is Brett Kavanaugh didn't withdraw his name. And Brett Kavanaugh withstood the process. And now he's going through it again, and it looks like kind of needlessly. So hopefully we adjust our comportment moving forward in these important moments and really find people who are best qualified and people who've never lived outside of a cave or a bubble, who have, no untoward interaction with any human being, verbal, physical, or otherwise, because that's the only way you're going to confirm someone. We're going to talk more with the panel later. The drums of war growing louder by the minute as the standoff with Iran begins to reach a fever pitch. But can the world step back before we reach the point of no return? U.S. officials tonight telling Fox News that the weekend attack on a Saudi Arabian oil facility definitely originated inside Iran. They claim it was too sophisticated a strike for the Yemeni rebels who are claiming responsibility. But so far, nobody has shown us any concrete evidence of that. And I, for one, would like to see some proof before we jump into World War III to bail out the treacherous Saudis. Fortunately, cooler heads so far have prevailed. President Trump has claimed he doesn't want a battle with Iran, and the Pentagon is urging restraint. But today we learned that generals have given the president a full menu of military options. And Vice President Pence warned Iran that the U.S. is in no mood to play games.
If Iran conducted this latest attack to pressure President Trump to back off, they will fail.
Oh, girl. These are new satellite images of the facility. Saudi Arabia now claims they'll have it back online in about 2 weeks. So should we risk getting involved in a potentially disastrous hot war over an attack in a foreign country that will barely affect any Americans? The party panel is back. Noelle, Nikpour, Leslie Marshall, and Dave Smith. So let's say it was Iran. Iran didn't attack us. Iran bombed Saudi Arabian oil fields. I still don't understand how that's a premise for the U.S. to have any sort of military retaliation.
Well, in fact, I mean, there's just as good an argument that we should retaliate against the Saudis if they were to attack Iran. I mean, after all, America was not attacked by Shiites, that we were attacked by radical Sunnis who had, pretty close relationships with the Saudi Arabian government. We're also on kind of the wrong side. We're fighting the Houthis, who are the enemies of al-Qaeda in Yemen. It makes absolutely no sense for us to be on this side of the conflict. I also agree with you. We haven't seen any evidence that this was Iran. We're just basically asked to trust the same people who got the intelligence wrong in Iraq, in Yemen, in Syria, in Libya. Okay. And also, by the way, they've been getting the intelligence wrong in Iran. My entire life, I'm 36 years old. Basically, my entire life, Bibi Netanyahu has promised me that Iran is 3 years away from a nuclear weapon. You can go all the way back to the late 80s and find him saying this. And he's been wrong every single time. So let's see a shred of evidence. And even if, as you said, even if we did see some evidence, it would be no reason to get into a war here. Every war that we've gotten into in this region has been a disaster where hundreds of thousands of people get killed. We spend trillions of dollars.
I know, but that's about $6 trillion if you add up all the costs and the debt and
that pales in comparison to the millions of lives. I mean, like millions of people, and nobody, even Tulsi Gabbard, Ron Paul was the only politician I remember who ever inserted into the national conversation the issue of the Middle Eastern and Northern African people who die.
Yes.
Like the innocent people over there who die. That's a problem. Why are we just talking about this now? How about what Saudi Arabia has been doing to Yemen?
American lives.
Yes. What Saudi Arabia has been doing to Yemen over the last few years.
I've been talking about that on my show.
Well, that's right. And
I've been talking about
the only ones.
Starving kids and American bombs and how that is unacceptable. The Saudis are not our friends. And I don't think that is a naive position. I think that is a position that one can arrive at with eyes wide open.
Thank you for taking some of my talking points. Iraq, Yemen. The Republicans, I think, believe that Saudi Arabia is our 51st state. It is not.
By the way, your side is no better. Hillary Clinton would be so much worse
She's not
on
president,
this issue.
and it's not her administration.
No,
and she's not trying to go to war with Iran, and she wouldn't.
Yes, but the war in Yemen started under Barack Obama. This is very much his responsibility. Trump has responsibility for continuing it, but this war was started under Barack Obama to, quote, placate the Saudis.
But we're not
Go
talking
Google
about
Obama,
the war in
placate
Yemen
the
right now.
Saudis.
We're talking about we're talking about Iran being blamed for something that the rebels have clearly taken responsibility for. To me, just look at it from Iran's perspective. You know, to your point, and I agree with you 100%, every year, every month, they're enriching their uranium and they're building nuclear warheads and missiles, and they're going to kill us, and they're going to wipe Israel, our buddy in the Middle East, off the map.
I mean, they talk about that, though. They talk about both those things openly.
Right, but the reality is that Israel and the United States have enough nuclear weapons ourselves to make Iran a parking lot in probably 15 minutes or less.
Which we also talk about. I mean, if we're going to say
then maybe arming Iran
knows
nuclear
this.
armament is good for Iran because
Iran
they
doesn't
can
need
engage
to have
in
this
mutually assured destruction.
Iran doesn't need to do this. We knew, the president knew, his administration knew that when we pulled out of the Iran deal, they might build a nuclear weapon
no,
to
so we
stick
should
it in
accuse them.
No, that's
we should
not.
give them whatever they want,
Kennedy,
so they
that's
don't
not
do
what
bad
I'm
things.
saying.
That's
what I'm
appeasement
saying
is. That is
what
a
I'm saying. This
textbook
is
definition
not.
of
This
appeasement.
is not Iran's characteristic and how they historically have operated. They have the Strait of Hormuz. They don't need to mess with Saudi Arabia. They know that they're sitting ducks with the United States and Israel. And I think that Secretary of State Pompeo is a hawk with regard to Iran. I think the president is talking peace, and I think they're making this up to go to war with Iran.
Bring it home, girl.
Well, I think that we're dealing with three leaders, one unpredictable in the United States, and then you've got two other leaders that are a little unhinged. I mean, look what Saudi Arabia did to Khashoggi. So you've got these three things going on at the same time. The other thing is it's a little confusing. We did away with the Iranian nuclear deal, and now, we got rid of the biggest hawk, which was John Bolton. So this is kind of going this way. So we're heading into this crisis with really unpredictable direction because nobody really knows which way we're going to go towards this.
For people who slam the president, he has been consistent in anti-interventionism. And there's one thing when he uses bluster occasionally, but I think Bolton was more than bluster. And I think you have experienced generals at the Pentagon who realize the cost of war and who realize like once you start something, it's not the starting it, because there are fans of war like there are fans of football.
Well, yes, and it's really sickening. And Donald Trump is, to his credit, unlike the last two presidents, has not gotten us into a new war. That being said, he's talked about ending several of these conflicts and has never stuck to his guns on that, whether it was Syria or Afghanistan, Iraq. He's always talking about getting out. There's never actually any movement there. So I think it's a very good sign that Bolton's out. It's a good sign that they're not jumping right on the case of let's go to war. But every American citizen, after the last 6 wars, where all the evidence turns out to be completely counter to what we were told, let's see some evidence that this was actually Iran.
Let's do that
not take anyone's word for it.
And let's not pretend that this is all secret and we can't have access to it because only the adults in the room know really what's going on. Let's pretend we're all adults, and as a country we can come to a logical conclusion, and the only logical conclusion here is peace. More with the panel after the break. The president's Health and Human Services Secretary said last week that in coming weeks, the administration will be banning all flavored vapes nationwide. But should they hold their horses on this nanny state crackdown? We're back at the party panel. Noelle, Nikpour, Leslie Marshall, and Dave Smith. So, Noelle, what do you think about the president aligning himself with some of these ultra-leftist governors in places like California and New York?
It might be better to be safe than sorry. I think that
What is safe?
To me, we really do not know. I mean, vaping is relatively new. It's been around, but it's relatively new. Do I think it's as harmful as cigarettes? No way.
Yes.
I think they're better than cigarettes.
So if people can't vape, what are they going to do? Are they going to start bike riding?
No, they're not going to bike
So
ride.
what are they going to do? What's the alternative to vaping?
I think that it might force the manufacturers to look at maybe different types of ingredients to make vaping maybe, I don't want to say more healthy, but maybe make them rethink some of the ingredients.
Who's got
on
more of a vested interest in providing their customers with a healthier product? Black market drug dealers or a big company like Juul?
I think a big company like Juul is going to turn around and look at maybe some of the ingredients and make an appeal to get their cigarettes remarketed, rebranded with new ingredients. This won't take that long to have new ingredients, because by the time that they can get the formula for new ingredients, they can have those out and see what happens.
But the ingredients in Juul aren't the problem, Leslie. It's the fact that drug dealers who are operating in a black market are taking liquid THC and mixing it with a bunch of other stuff. And oddly enough, on black market products, there's no ingredient list. And, you know, when I joke about customer service lines, there's no number you can call when your THC is burning your lungs.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of problems here. To your point, because my husband's a physician, so I'll always ask him the medical side of things. And he said there's just not research. And maybe because now we have more than 380 cases and we have deaths, and the highest number of deaths, 7 now, and most in the state of California.
Maybe it's too much competition for very powerful, very big industries.
I look at it from the, humanitarian health perspective and also as a parent. You had said we as parents have a responsibility, all that, yeah. But when I was 12 and tried a cigarette, my mother did not give me permission for that, right? I got it from somebody who was old enough to walk into the store, and to get it for me. My problem here are the kids. This is more attractive because it smells nice, it tastes nice compared to cigarettes. And, people have this belief, we really don't know if it's safer for our bodies, for our lungs than cigarettes, because they're all pulmonary issues that these 380 plus cases have all had. Of course, what's their immune system, the list goes on. When you talk about banning, I know you say, the leftists want to ban. No, as a liberal, I'm sort of like, I like to make my own decisions. However, in the state of California, this because you used to live, they started banning smoking everywhere. It started, you couldn't smoke here. Then you couldn't smoke around, then 100 feet. And then it was like just not on the block.
Poor people.
But what happened?
Well, because
what happened?
People
quit smoking.
I'm going to bring Dave in here.
It was good.
Because I think we're missing the point.
Well, I think the idea of what the health issues are is actually completely separate from what's important about this conversation. I think it's pretty clear that vaping is healthier than smoking. We probably don't know exactly what the health problems with vaping are. My guess is there are some. That being said, what you're talking about here is throwing a human being in a cage for 6 months for having more than 4 of these liquid pods.
That's specific. That's
very arbitrary.
Yes, that is one specific deal, but that's what's happening in a state in the United States of America. That is horrifically immoral.
The 2 other biggest states in the country are following.
That's the model. If you're going to
and
make
the president
it illegal,
and his Health and Human Services
Secretary. The idea that 100 years just about later we still haven't learned the lessons of prohibition really is kind of depressing. This is certainly going to result in more people dying, in more people getting this in bad ways through a black market, in more people smoking rather than vaping. Juul has not really in any way been proven to produce unhealthy products. And the question really to me comes down to, does the government have a right to tell an adult what they can put in their body?
What if it's not an adult?
Well, then parents have a right to do that. Okay, fine. Yeah, but
because online, there's no regulation.
Right, but we already have laws against children smoking these things, and you can say that yes, people get out of those laws. Okay, well, but listen, just proving that something is a health damage. About 50% of the murders committed in America, people are drunk when they do it. How many people die every year through drunk driving?
How many people die every year?
No, of course I can't compare them because alcohol is far, far worse. It's not even a close comparison.
You know what's worse than alcohol? Sugar.
But you know what?
Like, my husband would be in love with you, right?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Look what people put in their bodies every single day.
It's almost fine to me. It's just if Republicans want to go down the road of saying, like, well, this is a health problem, so some wise overlord is going to decide you can't put this in your body. Fine, just don't ever claim that you believe in freedom or small government or anything like that again.
Please
don't ever use those terms.
Please don't say you're the president of deregulation when you want to shut down an entire industry based on anecdotal
But just for
evidence that is
safety.
going to.
Just to look at for safety.
But there's
I mean, you better be
That's
thinking
sorry,
in
but you're
20
You could
creating a
justify-
climate that will
Stop that.
actually be structurally far less safe.
And even
And
so,
that
people
is
have the right to
unethical,
be
What
that
about
is
even
immoral,
warning
and that is a
labels?
disservice.
Remember, warning
Okay,
labels on the side of
we
cigarettes. Why
unfortunately
don't we
have to
some
go. I
warning
would
for
love to vape over this topic for 5 minutes. When Kat is back, we will do that. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Always good to talk to you. Dave, Leslie, and Noelle.